Okay.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Shiloh. Glad you're back.
Yes, I've done my homework, so I'm ready to get back into it.
All right. So, what was your homework?
So I wanted to pick a company. I'm following along with your reference guide and the homework assignment, and so I'm picking a company that interests me. And the idea was to do one company from NASDAQ and one company from the New York Stock Exchange.
Okay.
So I started with NVDA because
Okay.
that's the one I've heard the most about from everyone.
Right. Everybody's talking about NVIDIA right now.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, that one is good. And I also found it's the ticker symbol. Is that
Right.
the NVDA? Is that
Right.
Okay.
NVDA is the ticker symbol, and the name of the company is NVIDIA. And I think that starts with an NV also.
Okay,
NVIDIA. Yeah.
cool. So that's NASDAQ, right? Which makes sense. And then the other one is Reddit, which is the New York Stock Exchange. And that is RDDT.
Right. That one went public recently.
Oh,
I don't know when
Really?
exactly. We could look it up, but
Yeah.
I think it was, just a private company. And like I've noticed as a Reddit user that some features of the platform have changed since it's gone public. There's a little more advertising. I don't know. I haven't really done any research about what going public has meant for Reddit, but I do think it's changing the business model a little bit.
yeah, no, it's interesting because we've had conversations about how when you're on Reddit, you cannot be advertising
Right.
anything, period. And so thinking about, well, now you're buying shares of Reddit. So what is that?
Right. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And how is Reddit going to make money when in the subreddits, people hate to be pitched to
Yeah.
in the Reddit,
Yeah.
in the subreddits.
Well, that's going forward. I'm glad to, learn more about that, see how it develops. I picked some other ones, but we can come back to it. I was just looking for things that had, let's see, the current share price. Is that what's listed?
Right. That
I
was one of the
Googled it.
questions. Yeah.
So I started with NVIDIA and Reddit, and they were similar as far as their share prices. And then I went up. So I was looking at Apple and Microsoft, and then a new one for me was Eli and Lilly. And I was like, this looks very expensive,
Well,
but I don't know.
So remember when we talked about market capitalization?
Yes.
That the share price doesn't tell you very much about how expensive the stock is. Because, I don't know how many shares of NVIDIA are outstanding or how many shares of Reddit are outstanding, but the share price times the number of shares that exist will tell you the value of the company.
Okay.
And from there, there are a lot of ways people decide whether the share price itself is overpriced or underpriced and whether it's a good buy or not. So that might be an interesting task for next time is to look at the market capitalization for NVIDIA and Reddit. Because even though they have the same share price, the company and the number of shares available are very different.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that's, it's somewhat misleading because when you do the Google and you see the share price, you have to know that you're going to be the one choosing the amount you pay, right. For the shares. And that doesn't necessarily, the fact that it's $195 doesn't affect how much you're buying the shares for.
Well, that's how much you pay for each share.
Okay.
And you decide how many shares you're going to buy. The difference is what size piece of the company pie are you buying? If you buy 3 shares of NVIDIA and 3 shares of Reddit, you probably own a lot bigger piece of the Reddit pie than you do of NVIDIA.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. And so what do these companies do? How do they make their money?
Well, so that's NVIDIA. I remember that it was tech, right? Tech related.
And very AI related.
And AI. Okay. And then that we kind of covered Reddit a little bit. It's a little bit of a mystery to me. So that part I didn't get too far on as far as what exactly they're selling. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about NVIDIA?
I don't know that I can summarize it in a way that would not would not get me, roundly criticized by people who know more than I do. I know that it is AI focused. I know that they have their, metaphorical fingers in a lot of pies, and are industry leaders, and that there are projections that this stock is going to really continue to grow and grow in value.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of talk recently about an AI bubble.
Okay.
And whether or
I've
not
seen this.
yeah,
I have no
right.
idea.
Right. Yeah.
The bubble.
Is it overpriced to the point that there's going to be a big pullback before there is continued growth? And, I always say no one has a crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen. But I do think it's important to understand something about the companies that you're investing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do some reading and understand, how they make their money and what the analysts who are paid to know more than we do are saying about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember. I would have to look into it, but I was briefly just looking up like how to invest ethically. And there's a certain set of standards for the companies, if it's sustainable or like there were, 3 big ones. But so that was just something that was in my mind too, is not only is the company knowing what they're doing, but also is it ethical to some extent? And also, like what does it mean that you are contributing to a large company, right?
Right. Oh, I know. I mean, I think that the idea of, and I think we talked about this a little bit, what does it mean to invest ethically? And, if you are a huge financial services corporation that can actually have an impact on share price and company policy, then it might mean something different than it means for a small retail investor who's just trying to invest for their own personal financial security. Yep. And I'm pausing here because I don't really know how to answer it. I mean, there are certain things I would not invest in.
Certainly.
Although I may be invested in them as part of some of these index funds that I own. I probably am invested in things that I wouldn't choose to invest in as an individual stock. So I think that's a decision that everybody has to make for their own, just for their own peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's complicated and I think ongoing, right? So that's part of it. But it seems to be that people are discussing this, and some people are saying, make the money you can in a good way, and if you care about certain causes, contribute to those causes with the money that you make. Right. Or like on other, on the other end, people are saying kind of, investigate the companies, but there's certainly many, many different
ways to approach that. So if you make money off of, there's a company that had, I won't name it, but was roundly criticized for pushing formula in developing countries on women who could not afford to continue with formula, so basically disrupting their breastfeeding experience and then making money off the fact that they could no longer breastfeed their children.
Yeah.
And so I think about,
it's terrible.
Yes. And so I wouldn't want to invest in that company, but if I did and I made money off of them and donated to La Leche League,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of ways to think about what it means to invest ethically. And
I think just thinking about it in the first place is a much bigger step.
Right. Yeah. And
than a lot of people are taking. So
yeah. And thinking about how your investing choices align with your own values.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and at the same time, taking care of yourself in a way that is going to sustain you long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think ultimately puts you in a better position to act ethically.
Right, exactly. If you have more financial freedom, you also have more choice about how you spend your time and what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, that was a segue. All right. So back to, let's see, we were talking about NVDA and Reddit.
Yeah.
So what else did you learn this week when you were doing your homework?
So part of my journey and also my interest in NVIDIA is that my mom owns NVIDIA shares. And she said that she owned 10 shares and that she also owns shares in Tesla and Bitcoin. And I told her, well, I think you need 100 shares in NVIDIA to be able to do this options trading.
Right.
And so she said, oh, well, I sold some of my Tesla shares so I could get that 100 for NVIDIA. So that was, I'm talking to everybody in my life about what are they doing. And so that was one big one. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then my friend, he's a software developer, and he said, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I invest in the top 500 something and other.
Okay, he's
so
probably
those are
talking about the S&P 500. And when we get to the topic of stock indexes, we'll talk about exactly what it means to invest in those 500 companies.
Great. Cool. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, it sounds like you've covered a lot of ground, and that it's not just brought up questions about the process, but also about how you make the decisions that you make.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think about that in the rest of my life too. So it makes sense that you would be, for me, when I'm thinking about my finances. So,
To think about how to think beyond your personal impact on yourself to your impact on others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So did you, I was going to go back to your mom and 100 shares of NVIDIA. So now that she has 100 shares, she can, if she wants to, sell covered calls on them. And that is one of the safest ways to trade options. The only thing she would be risking is that she would be forced to sell those 100 shares at a profit, but at a price she chooses.
Okay.
And I know that's complicated and it's way down the road for you.
Yeah.
But,
as I learn, I'm passing it on to her, and she's way ahead of me. So,
right.
But it's equally, I think, beneficial.
Right.
So.
Well, and sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And that was, part of what she was saying is she just sort of, she just dove in and was like, I'll learn as I go and figure it out. So, and I think she's been doing this about 6 or 7 years.
Okay,
so,
good for her.
Yeah. And she takes other people's advice and tries to listen to her brothers
That's great.
cousins and everyone. So, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So did you have any other questions about this stuff we covered last time?
Let me see. I'm just going to make sure I'm just going to return to my terms.
Right. Yeah, make sure that you were solid with all of these. I mean, as I'm looking through public and private company, IPO, stock ticker, share price, market capitalization, we've already talked about that a little bit today, about why even though Reddit and NVIDIA have similar share prices, their market capitalization is probably very different.
Yeah.
More than probably, is definitely very different.
Yeah, and I think, which we already touched on, the share price and how that correlates or doesn't correlate to what you are buying, right? So that was a big one.
Right.
Being like, what does this number mean to me as a person who might be investing? Yeah.
So was there anything else? I'm just sort of looking at that list that you're scrolling through there. I feel like when we talked about the difference between investing and trading, I think you've got it. Investing is making money with your money.
Yeah.
So do you feel ready to move on to the topic of stock exchanges and brokers?
I do.
All right.
Yeah, let's go.
So this is the information that's covered in the third video. And you may want to watch. I mean, the video is very short, and it'll cover what we have talked about in a sort of summary way.
Fantastic.
Okay. So we have talked a little bit about stock market and exchanges. The market is it's like the marketplace where people buy and sell shares of stock. And stock exchanges are where that activity happens. So the New York Stock Exchange is this really well-known location. It's sort of iconic. You see these movies of, like, if you look at this picture here,
people doing stuff.
Waving around. These historical images of the New York Stock Exchange are chaotic and interesting. And, I remember seeing them in old black and white movies with people waving their stock certificates around and bidding and, calling out to each other on this floor. NASDAQ is a different exchange. I think I'm not going to misspeak. It's not in New York.
Sure. It's online.
Yes, and trading on NASDAQ has always been done electronically. And there are different stocks that are traded on different exchanges. But with the broker that you choose, you'll be able to buy and sell stock on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ.
Great.
Okay. So historically, if you wanted to buy stock or sell your stock, you had to go to a broker, a guy, almost always a guy. You had an office. You might call him, you might go talk to him about what you wanted to buy, and then he would place an order with a trader. This person who would then go to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and try to buy what you wanted to buy or sell what you wanted to sell and get the best price that they could for you. And then after the trades happened, this person would come back to the broker, and the broker would call you, or you'd go meet with him, and he would tell you what price you got and what you owned. And in order to do that, you had to pay your broker, and you had to pay your broker a lot, because your broker had to pay the trader, and everybody was getting paid for their participation in your sales.
Okay.
So it meant that participation in the stock exchange or in the stock market was mostly limited to people who had a lot of wealth. And you do still need a broker, but it's probably not like you think. Now, your broker might be an online discount brokerage service. So if you invest with Schwab or Fidelity or Robinhood, you get access to an online brokerage service. So you don't have to talk to anybody. You can just place your trades yourself. And other people on their apps or on their computers are also placing trades to buy or sell. And those matches happen electronically rather than with some guy waving stock certificates around and trying to find you a buyer. Those matches happen almost instantaneously. So instead of having to pay a lot of money to a broker to make this happen for you, you can do it for a trading fee of, buying and selling stocks and ETFs, it's usually free. There are no trading fees.
That's great.
Yes. So it makes it much more affordable. Buyers and sellers are matched on an exchange. You completely cut out the middlemen, and it means that you can do this even if you have a small amount to invest.
Great. And that's $100.
right there.
Yeah.
So terminology from this exchange, the difference between, or from this, key terminology from this episode: stock market versus a stock exchange. The market is the overall market of, all of the buying and selling and trading that's happening.
And would that be internationally, like all of the?
Yes. I mean, people talk about the U.S. market versus the international market.
Okay.
There are other exchanges in other parts of the world. I don't trade a lot on the international exchanges, although I'm sure I could with the broker I have. But the things I'm invested in are mostly managed by U.S. companies. And that's just because I think it's important to know what you're investing in. And I don't feel as knowledgeable about some of the international markets. There are funds that will invest in the total world stock market for you. And when we get to talking about diversification and funds versus individual stocks, we can talk more about that. So New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, a stockbroker, intermediary, trader, commission. So, we talked about how there were huge commissions for people who used to want to invest, but now automated. And when you hear the term retail investors, that's us.
Okay.
We are not some huge financial services company that's buying, millions of shares of some company. We're buying a few shares at a time, and we are small retail investors who have very little impact on the actual cost of the shares that we're buying and selling.
That makes sense.
All right, let's see, what else do we have here? So in your download, you'll have review questions that you can look at. And I think you're going to be solid with those.
Yeah, I think up next for me, in my research, I came across Fidelity and Vanguard as brokerage accounts that I could use. Is that the same as when you say choosing a broker?
Yes.
Is that you're choosing a brokerage account?
You're choosing a brokerage account. There are people who will, and again, usually people with a fairly high level of wealth, who may hire an investment management firm to handle their funds for them. And so if you go with one of those companies, they pay themselves out of your out of the proceeds of your investments. And you don't really see it, because they just tell you how much money you made that year. And what you may not realize is that they kept 2% of what you made.
Right.
And so you're still making money, but they're also making money. But if you go with one of these low-cost, self-serve brokerage firms, online brokers, people say it a lot of different ways, then you're not paying a person to make investment decisions for you, and you keep more of the funds that you earn, and your investments compound for you. And you can learn to do this. I mean, I don't think there's really any reason to pay one of those firms to do this unless you have a really complicated estate or set of investments and a complex tax situation. But that's not most of us, and probably not the people who are our audience.
Cool.
Yes. So the next topic that we have up is indexes or indices, and that's the Dow, the S&P 500, which you said one of your friends has referenced, and NASDAQ, which is both a stock exchange, but there is a NASDAQ index.
Okay.
So I think, we're going to meet again next week. So why don't we hold off on the indexes?
All right.
And is there anything in particular that you want to work on this week?
No, I don't think so. I think learning about the S&P 500 and an index, I'm guessing, is a list of all of the companies.
Kind of, yeah. Indexes are ways to measure market success, and so we'll kind of talk about where they came from and how they're used. But I think we can hold off until next week. So I think you've already done some of the episode 3 homework, which is finding stock from the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. So you did a little bit of your own research. And then you had asked about international funds. So that might be something that would be worth learning about. You can just on your own do a little, because we don't really cover much of that in this series that we're going through. But look at some other exchanges. See what's the name of the exchange in Japan or
I went to Toronto recently, so Canada.
So see where some of these other international exchanges are and what's traded there. And I did a workshop for some teenagers one time, and most of them were U.S. teenagers, actually kids from Chapel Hill for the most part. But one kid zoomed in with us from Germany, and he was, he had a lot of knowledge, but he was talking about European stock exchanges and what he was interested in investing in. And he already was aware of some things that I wasn't, because I'm just not as knowledgeable about international investing.
All right. So I'll check that out, and then we'll come back and
we'll come back in the next
talk about index.
We'll talk about index funds and the S&P 500, the Dow, NASDAQ. Now, the next one after that is the part everybody's waiting for, which is how do you actually make money doing this? So we talk about dividends, capital gains, and a little bit about options, even though I'm not encouraging any options trading. We might be able to cover both of those next time. Okay. Great.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, this is fun. All right, everybody, we will see you next week, and move along. And Shiloh is making great progress in learning what she needs to learn to set up her first account.
Okay, bye.